So the Red Data Book. The Red Data Book is a file for recording rare and endangered species of animals, plants, and fungi. So it is a book. Basically, it is a file record for the world. So just it count all the species of plants and animals. They put it in a format where which ones are endangered and which ones are extinct. So it's basically a record for our knowledge. Local subspecies that exist within the territory of a state or country are recorded in the Red Data Book. So each and every local village or a town or a city, whatever it is, so whatever territory these plants and animals are, they'll be put into the Red Data Book. Red Data Book gives important data for observational studies and monitoring programs on habits and habitats of rare and endangered species. Basically, gives you an idea of what are the species that are present, what are endangered, what are extinct, and what they have to do. Basically, what are these species they have to concentrate. So it also gives information about that particular area. What are the flora and fauna that are present in that particular area. So identify and protect the species with which are about extinct. Also, gives the responsibility for us what we have to protect. What are the species we have to protect? So what are the programs we have to? What are the programs does the government need to take to protect these species? That's the Red Data Book. All right. So this Red Data Book is maintained by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. So it is an international union. It is not a local one. It is international, and that is a union that conserves the nature. It is an international organization working in the field of nature conservation and sustainable use of natural resources. So this organization, it's working in the natural conservation part. So it conserves the nature. Basically, the main important function of them is to conserve the nature and also use sustainable sources. It was founded in the year 1964, maintaining a complete record of every species that ever lived. So, it is operating from 1964. This Red Data Book has been maintained from 1964. So it has all the species that ever lived. So classify species. This Red Data Book, it classifies species in 3 categories. One is threatened, not threatened, and unknown. So, so why a species has become extinct with the population trends and its distribution. So it also ask questions why this species have become extinct, what is the population, and also its distribution. So it basically gives all the idea of a particular species. So this is how the Red Data Book gives you an idea. So this is how it is. So it gives the black color is extinct. So extinct, EX means extinct, and extinct in the wild. So in the wild it is extinct. Without doing anything, it just extinct. So that's the extinct in the wild. And critically endangered is in red color, CR. Endangered means EN. Vulnerable means VU. Least concern. So least concern is another one category, that is they're not concerned about it. They are abundant. Near threatened, DLC. Data deficient, data is not available, not evaluated. So okay, so these are the categories which are found in the Red Data Book. So this is how it appears with color code. So it has color codes in it. So this is called the Red Data Book. All right. So what are the advantages of the Red Data Book? So it evaluates the population of a particular species. It evaluates the species at global level. So a particular species is basically evaluated. So whatever species which are concerned about, it evaluates that, and also globally. So it's not a local body, it's a global body. So globally, what other species are extinct. The risk of a species becoming globally extinct can be estimated. So global. So basically, it operates in a global level, and also it does not concern it, or it's not confined to one particular area. So because it's actually a global body and it's taking it to a national and a global international level, we can have data worldwide. So worldwide this data is available. It provides guidelines for implementing measures for protecting an endangered species. So it gives you the guidelines how to protect the species also. It actually provides a lot of information. It provides measures how you have to do the job. So everything in gives you an idea of. So what are the disadvantages? So basically disadvantages is the information is, they say the information is incomplete. So you know, they're not actually operating each and every day, right? So each and every day you can't go and find out a new species. So so many species are not listed, so you can't have a complete book with all the species in the world. So they say the available data is incomplete. Many extinct species are not updated in the book. So most of the extinct species, they are not updated. The source of the book's data has been speculated. So from where they are getting the information, from where they are getting the resource, so that does not have a proof for it. So we actually don't know where they are getting the information of. So that's the disadvantage. This book maintains the complete record of all animals, plants, and the species, but has no information about microorganisms. So it actually gives a wide variety of animals, plants, etc. Does not give any information of microorganisms. That's a major disadvantage of the book. So moving on to the Red Data Book of India. So I told you it is this Red Data Book is globally maintained, but especially in India, there is a particular Red Data Book which is maintained especially for India. So India alone, it has a Red Data Book. So we have around 45,000 species of plants and 91,000 species of animals in India. So 4 out of 34 globally identified biodiversity spots in India are the Himalayas, the Western Ghats, the Northeast, and the Nicobar Islands can be found in India. So these are the 4 important biodiverse hotspots. That is, it is actually filled with flora and fauna. It is filled with animals and plant species. So these are the 4 main hotspots, biodiverse hotspots in India out of 34. So globally there are 34 hotspots, 4 are found in India alone. So in 1969, India became the state member of IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature. So this expansion is not given in the textbook, so please note it down. So that is a union for conservation of nature, International Union for Conservation of Nature, and they became the member of it through the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So this Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, they are the ones in India, they operate in India, and they actually conserve the nature. They basically work to conserve the nature. They put programs, they put acts to conserve the nature. So when this is operating, they became the International Union member for Conservation of Nature. They became one of the member through this. And in 2007 in New Delhi, IUCN India was established. So I told you that that's a global body, and this was established. This IUCN, they became established in India in 2007. They came to India and they established their things in India. So okay, so let's move on about the Red Data Book. Okay, so in India, the Red Data Book, has the conservation status of animals and plants found in the Indian subcontinent. I told you that. So India maintains one Red Data Book, and the surveys conducted. So this data, which is given in the Red Data Book, these are the surveys which are conducted by the zoologists and the botanists. Basically, in India, we have the zoologists and the botanists. They work for the government, and they make a survey now and then. And this survey come under the guidance of the Ministry of Environment, which I told you about. So under this, under that Ministry of the Environment, they operate. The zoologists and the botanists operate, and they give information to the Red Data Book, and they only provide the information for the book. So moving on to conservation. Conservation, according to World Wildlife Fund (WWF), 60% there is a 60% decrease in the size of population of animals, birds, fish, reptiles, and amphibians over the past 40 years. So of course, over consumption and pollution, 60%, there is 60% decrease in the animals in the past 40 years. So they conducted a survey and they found out this. So whereas conservation, the definition for conservation is the protection, preservation, management of wildlife and natural resource such as forest and water. So conservation, this is done by the humans, of course. We are the ones who are going to protect, preserve and manage the wildlife and plants and animals and water, whatever it is. We are just saving that for the future. So conservation of biodiversity helps us to protect, maintain and recover endangered animals and plant species. So when we try to conserve biodiversity, so especially when conservation in the biodiversity, it will help us to maintain the animal species, and also it will protect the endangered animals and the plants. So this is what conservation is all about. So conservation can be divided into two types. So one is in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. So in the first one, the conservation is done within the habitat. So within the habitat, in the sense wherever the animals are living, we try to we humans, interfere and try to conserve them. And we prevent them from hunting, poaching. So all the human activities we prevent. The government will interfere and prevent the activities, and also cutting down the trees, etc., etc. So that is done. So examples are national park, wildlife, bird sanctuaries, and biosphere reserves. So if you have gone to Vedantangal, I don't know, like I have gone in my school days. So if you can see there, they conserve these birds. So Vedantangal is somewhere they're conserving the birds in that environment itself. They're not bringing the birds to some other habitat. They are actually maintaining the birds in that habitat itself, in their own habitat. So that is called in situ conservation. Whereas in ex situ conservation, they are brought to some other habitat. Outside the habitat, they are conserved. For example, in zoos, botanical gardens, conservation of genes, seedling and tissue culture. So this is ex situ conservation. All right. These are the types which we just read. So types are in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. Whereas the first one is national park, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves. Then in ex situ conservation, we are doing it in botanical gardens, zoological parks, tissue culture, seed banks, and cryo bank. So these are the types which we are going to study one by one in the next few slides. So we'll stop till here. This class will stop till here. So in the next class, we'll study the types of in situ and ex situ conservation in detail. Thank you, students.